come to the finals of the Upper Eastern region, and we have the senior team with us. That is Nyangwa boys versus St. Mary's Igoji. And the motion of the day reads, Africa's over-dependence on non-genetically modified food crops is the main hindrance to achieving food security. I read the motion again. Africa's over-dependence on non-genetically modified food crops is the main hindrance to achieving food security. All the best to both teams. Team proposition, first speaker, you have 3 minutes.
Food security is as important as national security for any country. Therefore, the government should look towards promotion of food security. This will lead to promotion of the agriculture sector. Proposing this motion is Karemi Amy, proposing the motion that states African overdependence on non-genetically modified food crops is the main hindrance to achieving food security. First, I'll start by contextualizing the motion. So what's overdependence? Overdependence, it's the state of being too dependent, especially for help or support. Collins Online Dictionary. Also, there's non-genetically modified food crops. These are foods that have not gone through any non-genetically modification. So they are organic foods and that are grown GMO free and are pesticides free. So hindrance is a thing that provides the delay of something. So achieving food security will be checking on the Sustainable Development Goal of number 2, which states zero hunger. So to start with, non-GMOs are costly. Why are they costly? In terms of high labor and production cost. So, because organic farmers cannot use chemicals on this, we are saying that these are organic foods which are GMO-free and are pesticides-free, meaning that it's gonna have a production cost. We won't be using the pesticides which are gonna assist in, reducing the costs on GMO, because the organic farmers cannot use chemicals and synthetic herbicides and pesticides that are conventional, farmers use more labor. So we are talking about it's gonna be costly and there is gonna be labor. And this is not gonna help us in food security because we are going to be placing too much labor on it and we are not gonna find more production because of the organic foods. They will be affected by pesticides and meaning we won't be able to gather food security. So this is in the www.ambientbp.com blog, and also there are non-resistant crops, non-drought resistant crops. And when we look that there's 55 million people globally are affected by drought every year, and they are serious hazard to livestock and crops and in nearly every part of the world. This we see in the WHO and international. So droughts and other severe climate conditions, this won't help us gain the food security that we need because every time there's a drought, they are going to be affected. Thanks.
Team opposition, first speaker, you have 3 minutes.
Ladies and gentlemen, in front of you is David Nyangwa from the great Nyangwa Boys High School, and I stand to oppose the motion that says that Africa overdependence on non-genetically modified food is the main hindrance to achieving food security. Now, our opponents here are ignoring the fact that GMOs actually advance the quality growth of food. For example, one of the advantages of genetically modified food is that it can be changed to have the longer lasting life. And that's exactly what we need. We need food that will enable us to have more food, and it will protect our food. For example, this can be done by creating stronger colors, eliminating seeds, or having the plants get more adjusting for it to withstand harsh climatic changes. Non-genetically modified food actually have these. They enable our country to they enable our African countries to focus more on food, which will which will be able to withstand the harsh conditions the harsh conditions in the climatic changes. We are aware of the continuously changing climatic changes. For example, there is the drought that we are having currently in Kenya. And with this non-genetically modified food, we will be able to gather and to grow foods that are more resistant to diseases, and will be more able to adapt to the harsh climatic changes that we're experiencing. And also, it is good to know that genetically modified food is easier to cultivate. Genetically modified foods also manipulated to grow in specified problematic surroundings. They are able to grow in the harsh climatic conditions, and that's exactly what we need here in Africa, because Africa is a continent that lies in the equatorial part of the world. Therefore, we as Africans, we need genetically modified food will help us to improve our cultivation. We'll be able to cultivate more food, we'll be able to gather more production, and this will enable us to save for the food in the future. And our citizens, the people living in Africa as the Africans, will be able to have more food. We'll be able to have more food in the future in order to reduce the death rates that we're having. And with food in our future, with food in our country, in our continent, we'll be able to grow in other sectors of the economy. We'll be able to grow both economic and socially. Therefore, I would urge my proposers on the other side to join us in the opposing team, because that's exactly what we need in Africa. We need foods that are genetically modified, because genetically modified food help us to achieve food security. Thank you.
Team Proposition, second speaker, you have 3 minutes.
Food is national security. Food is craft. Food is everything when you think about it. Vicky Lena Mudhoni from St. Mary's Girls High School, Igoji, and I am here to strongly propose the motion that states Africa's overdependence on non-genetically modified foods is the main hindrance to achieving food security. Now, to our first opposer over here, from the look of things, it was like you are contradicting yourselves. You're actually kind of on our side, because you're giving the advantages of GMOs. You just said that the genetically modified foods, they are going to increase food production. So, onto my first point. Most of the time, pests and diseases are just nature's way of telling the farmer that he's doing something wrong. That leads me to the first point of pests and diseases. Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations estimates that annually, up to 40% of global crop production is lost to pests. This will deter people from achieving food security. So, as a local farmer, you're growing organic foods. Who is growing organic foods? After the pests have attacked your crops, the best solution will be like, okay, as a farmer who is growing organic foods, but of course you're not going to use GMOs, because you'll be like, oh, GMOs are going to cause allergic reactions to me. I don't know, GMOs are going to be harmful to me, which is kind of not the case. So the best solution for pests so this farmer is going to employ means like use of pesticides, use of herbicides, with an aim of curbing this pest, What this person doesn't know is that they are actually doing more harm than good. This is because heavy treatment of soil with pesticides can cause populations of beneficial soil microorganisms to decline. That is why Dr. Elaine Ingham said that if we lose both bacteria and fungi, then the soil degrades. This is according to an article on the National Library of Medicine published on 2009 March. And it further says that farmers can, so what is the best solution then? I mean, these pesticides are not helping at all, but they're actually destroying. I mean, what's the essence of going for organic foods and foods that are, what's the essence of going for organic foods if the curbing these pests and diseases is just going to destroy? So this person can just go and decide to go and use the best solution is the use of GMOs. So the second point, the non-GMOs, they produce a lower yield compared to the GMOs. In 2002, thank you.
Team opposition, second speaker, you have 3 minutes.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Brittany Karani from Nyangwa Boys, opposing the motion that Africa's overdependence on non-genetically modified food is the main hindrance to achieving food security. Okay, I want to say that it protects crops from extinction. Most foods that people consume nowadays are products of sole original source. For instance, each navel orange is basically a clone of a single original tree that was attached to create more trees. Okay, I mean that in this case, you take a certain plant and then you modify it so that it can increase its yield. So if we take like an orange tree and we improve it, so it is going to yield more results. And not having genetic disparities out of the crops at risk should a virus or microorganism be able to attack the fundamental genetic makeup of the crop. For example, I mean it's like this plant that we have improved. What if it wasn't improved? It will just have succumbed to the original causes that have been there, like what she said about pest. Okay, in agriculture, she said about depleting bacteria. You can just add lime to improve soil. You can add lime to improve the soil fertility. So you just don't have to say that you can just lose the fertility of the soil by using the methods that you're implicating. So I say that if you apply lime to the soil, you're going to regain the soil. So you're not going to lose the soil value.
Thank you very much. Team proposition have been asked what benefits do GMOs have when it comes to our healthcare. Also, team opposition have been asked to elaborate on the use of lime. Is it to raise the pH or soil fertility and its relation to food security? Team proposition, third speaker, you have 3 minutes.
I am an artist. Simply put, I love painting. For this reason, allow me to paint the current picture of Africa's current state for you. Now, according to www.sos.usa.org, 226.7 million in Africa are staring at starvation. My name is Tennessee Njue from St. Mary's Girls High School, Igoji, where heroes are made. Now, my brother over there, you got it wrong. You are right. You got it wrong. Because my colleague was talking about the misconceptions people have about using GMOs. People usually have misconceptions that GMOs usually harm or affect the body. But according to www.newsframe.com, all these complaints about GMOs have actually been unfounded. Now, there was a question about what advantages GMOs have to our health. Well, let's start with the fact that GMOs are more nutritious. How is this so? Because when we are making GMOs, or genetically engineered foods, that is, we take a gene from a plant that has high yield or that produces foods that are nutritious, and we implant it in another plant which we expect for it to garner a better yield or a more nutritious yield. So our health is improved when we eat these foods that are more nutritious, which are genetically engineered. Now, to support my colleague over here, she talked about no hunger. Now, an organically grown maize takes 120 days. If you do the math, that is 4 months to grow. But a genetically engineered maize, according to www.reunas.com, it takes 1.5 months. I've just told you that Africa currently is suffering from a food insecurity problem. Now, are we going to wait for 4 months so that we can grow an organically grown maize so that people can have food, whereas people are dying out here? Let's not even talk about Kenya. Look at Chad. Look at Burkina Faso. Look at South Africa. Like, we cannot take the risk. African governments themselves cannot take the risk of having to wait for 4 months just to grow non-genetically modified foods, just so that people can have foods that are grown naturally. Now, my second proposal was talking about pests and diseases. Now, in Kenya, rice farmers have complained year in, year out that pests are affecting their crops. Has the government done anything about it? Now, we are providing a solution to these farmers. Come to GMOs. GMOs grow faster, are more nutritious. GMOs are drought resistant. They do not take long to mature, and they are not highly susceptible to pests and diseases. Now, my colleague was talking about the yield of GMOs, and to back her up, in 2002, Zambia cut off the flow of genetically modified food, mostly from maize, from the UN's World Program. What was the result of this? This left the population without any food during a famine. Now, it's ironical that we want to say that GMOs are bad, whereas these organically grown food crops aren't producing enough yield to sustain a whole population of a country, let alone Africa as a whole. Let us be rational people, good people, people who are of understanding, so that we can get to realize that GMOs are here as the savior. GMOs are here to help us curb this food insecurity that is a scourge to Africa. Thank you.
Team Opposition, third speaker, you have 3 minutes.
I'm very happy today standing to address another audience and to change the views of this bunch of misguided ladies. Finley Harry here in full combat gear, ready to oppose the motion that says Africa's dependence on genetically modified food crops is the main hindrance in achieving food security. Now, my first point is on shelf life. In our current state, a mother, a father will want food that will sustain them for longer because the strain of buying more food is too hard on our pockets. Genetically modified foods solve that problem. Why? Because GMOs are improved to last longer, contrary to naturally grown food, which go bad due to trivial reasons such as temperature. Again, my sister here said, the first proposer said, genetically grown food are foods which have not been genetically engineered, nor have gone through pesticide. With what she has said, I want her to give us a solution to a problem that farmers growing naturally grown food are facing, a problem like aphids. These small common pests are destroying foods on a very large scale. Now, because you don't want us to use pesticide, what do you want us to use? What do you want us to do to protect our foods? Again, I will have to say that change cannot take place where there is no will to change. We are not living in old times where rain was predictable, but where rain is erratic, and just as the ancestor of the bird noticed an anomaly in nature and developed wings, we detected changes in the environment, and we enhanced our food crops to adapt and thrive in our current but miserable weather conditions. And to answer the question posed by the guy from the audience, introduction of lime increases pH value, which increases soil fertility because some plants grow better in high pH soils. So you see, we are living in a world where we can no longer predict things that didn't pose challenges to us, like rainfall. So just as the animals, the prehistoric animals adapted, so detected anomalies and changed, us, we detected anomalies in nature and we responded accordingly. Thank you.
Team Proposition, you have 1 minute to give your closing remark.
I'm back here to support that Africa's overdependence on non-genetically modified food crops is the main hindrance to achieving food security. Now, the third opposer just called us misguided ladies. Well, these misguided ladies over here are rational beings who know that Africa is not just going to curb the problem of food insecurity, that is to attain the SDG of zero hunger by just relying on organic foods. No, we are going to use GMOs. Why? Because according to Zoya.com, genetically modified crops have reduced chemical pesticide use by 37%, increased crop yields by 22%, and increased farmers' profits by 68%. This is a win-win situation if you ask me, because Africa gets to have food, farmers get to obtain profits, and we aren't going to, the problems of pollution are going to reduce by 37% thanks to GMOs. Now, he posed a question on what farmers are going to do to solve a problem on aphids. Now, it seems you were sleeping during your biology lessons, because we use natural ways such as releasing birds, weaver birds, for example. These eat these aphids. Now, if only farmers could have decided to not go this long way of producing organic foods and just come to GMOs once and for all, because I just said increased crop yields by 22%, increased farmer profits by 68%, and reduced chemical pesticide use by 37%. Now, if you ask me, reducing chemical pesticide use by 37% is really going to help NEMA a lot, because we are not going to have instances where farmers are apprehended every time they use excessive fertilizers. That is if you ask me. Thank you.
Team opposition, you have 1 minute to give your closing remarks.
Ladies and gentlemen, the only way to lift people from poverty is through increased food production. Now, non-genetically modified food is not a hindrance to food security. Hindrance to food security is through the impunity that we have in our government systems. They do not fund our agricultural sectors. And, for example, a study shows that genetically modified food, a research which was published in 2013 showed that herbicides found in Roundup-tolerant crops led to the development of cancer in rats. And the paper was taken by the first journal to publish in it for having unfounded deceptive information. Now, if it can poison a rat, what can it do to human beings? So we, as the opposition team, say that non-genetically modified food is not a hindrance to food security. A hindrance to food security is our ignorance in our people. If we work harder, on our farms, if we major on other ways like mechanized food production, we will be able to protect our food. Thank you.
Africa's overdependence on genetically modified foods, that's one part of the motion, all right? Is the main hindrance to achieving food security. One thing leads to the other. Now, we have a team here that decided they're going to do half the motion and choose it's either non-genetically modified food or genetically modified food, and from there you got it wrong. Now, so what was the proposition supposed to tell us? It's purely about the fact that we need to move out of this non-genetically modified foods and really start embracing different ways of farming. Are we together? What was the opposition supposed to tell us? And I want to appreciate one opposition member who got it. You were supposed to tell us, listen, it's not about this, all right? There are many other factors that hinder achieving food security. And guess what? David, you had an aha moment, right? Towards the end, right? No, I'm looking at you. Yes, because you came and said, we are here, and I felt for you because you only had a minute. And you started saying, impunity is the one that is messing us up. Then you said, ignorance is the one that is messing us up. And then you started now giving the points we hoped you would have done at the beginning. Now, What does that mean? It's not all lost. Why? Because we have very many points that we give based on your speaking abilities, your passion and conviction, and your mastery of language as well. Mastery of topic is where we would have a question on. And so based on that, I want to appreciate you for starting. I want to appreciate Brittany as well for really starting, but you did not cross-examine, which is your role, and Finley as well. However, Finley, whenever you want to refer to your opponents, don't refer them in that sentence. I don't know, a bunch of what is that? You want to be a bit nice, okay? You can hit them hard by being a bit nicer, all right? So that's it for you. For the girls, I love the fact that you started by pointing out to the SDGs, which is good. You talked about how these non-GMOs are affected by pesticides. And however, there was a first source. I was curious about the first source. You said www.ho. And I was wondering, what is that HO? That source, I didn't get it. I wanted to know what that is. So I had a question on that. Vicky, great cross-examination. And I think you noted, these guys are almost supporting you. You noted that, and that was a bright point. I think Tennessee, you still stood out for me. Good tackling of questions. The only penalty I gave you this time round is that time. You decided I don't care about the bell. It was going all over. All the best.
When it's the finals, and it's actually the senior teams, there's a lot of expectation. So we had a lot of expectations from both teams. So that said, you'd have done better, both of you. So just look at that. You know, whoever proceeds to the nationals, you'll meet other teams who are better prepared. So you need to research, you need to plan your thoughts, and look at a motion critically. Nyangwa boys, but all the same, all the best for both teams.